Hi, and welcome to the Sewing Machines UK tutorial on the MySewnet software's Photostitch feature. It can be really difficult if you're not a tech-oriented person to step into the world of embroidery software, but it really isn't that hard, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll see that for yourself and you'll be able to create yourself something using the Photostitch feature. We're going to start by clicking File in the top left and then clicking Photostitch. At this point you have the choice of choosing which kind of photo stitch you want to create. You have the colour options, which are the three top ones, colour, sepia and monochrome, and then you have two slightly different ones at the bottom, being colour tile and linear photo stitch. I probably won't speak about the bottom two as I'll probably cover those in another video. The top three are quite self-explanatory. You've got colour at the top, which is just full colour. You've got sepia, which is more of your red tones. You've probably seen photos like this before. And then you've got monochrome, which just means of one colour. I mean, typically people would equate that to just black and white most of the time. I then hit next. This is where you choose the source of your image. You can either load it from the file, paste it, or you can even scan it or take a photo from a camera. The photo I'll be using will be from files, but there's a reason for that and I'll show you later. As you can see, I've got the photo that I'll be using today, which is my sister's dog. I'll just go ahead and select that. Right, simply hit next. You'll then be presented with some cropping options. The image that I chose was already cropped appropriately, as I'd already removed the background in editing software. But if you need to crop down your image at all, you can simply drag the box on the left to resize it and it'll show you the cropped image on the right hand side. Alright, next again. Alright, now on this screen you actually get the choice of editing your photos slightly. Like for example removing red eye, which can cause some strange results in the final product. Or the saturation, which you can oversaturate an image in order to bring out more details in the final embroidery. But for this example, I'm just going to be keeping it at 0 because I like the way that the image looked originally. Okay, next again. And here we have the design size. Obviously you want to be aware of your hoop size and select a smaller size than the size of your hoop. So I know that I'm going to want the height of my image to be the same size as the width of my hoop, as I want to put the logo sideways in the hoop. So I set it to 200 millimeters. I then hit next. It then popped up with this error, which is basically telling me that I'm doing quite a large photo stitch and it may take quite a lot of time to stitch out. So this is where removing the background can come in handy. If you know how to use editing software like Photoshop or maybe a free option like paint.net, then you can erase the background and then save it as a PNG format so it saves the transparency. If you save it as a JPEG, it won't save the transparency options and you'll end up with a plain white background. Alright, I'll close that message and we get on to the important part, choosing your thread colours, because this will change how your entire photo stitch looks. First of all, to get an accurate representation on the screen of what my final product may look like, I go ahead and choose Madeira Rayon 40, as that's the kind of thread that I'll actually be using in the final product. And then I'll have all of the colour options from that range. I start by reducing the amount of colours down to 6. I wanted to keep it as simplified as possible. As I'm using a 6 needle machine, it seemed to make sense to me at the start to choose 6 colours to go with, so I wouldn't have to mess around with changing the thread. At this point you can go ahead and delete any colours that you definitely don't want in the final image, and then you can use the pick tool to actually pick out colours from the photo on the right that you do want to highlight in the image, and it will add the closest match thread to the list for you. What I then did is, because it's not conceivable that you're going to have every colour of thread imaginable, you might just have a selection. So like I did, I tried to match the colours up as closely as possible with the ones that I actually had in real life, and then I would swap them out for that colour. Like as you can see, I've done it here with, well, almost all the colours, I went ahead and swapped them for the colours that I had, and as you can see, that has affected the preview on the right. But as long as you're happy with what the preview looks like, you're good. Otherwise, you can just buy additional colours, I suppose. If you feel like you're losing specific details that you wanted to keep, or there's not enough detail in a specific location, what you can do is tick the define a focal area box and then drag it to that area that you really want to be higher in detail. Bear in mind that this will reset your colour selection options, so it's best to do this first if you're going to do it at all. I went ahead and selected the eye as I knew that it would be an issue in the final product, as it would blend in with the darker side of his face, so I wanted to try and highlight as much detail in that area as possible. In the end, I ended up making my life that much simpler and went for a 4-thread design, keeping it real simple, as minimal changes of the machine as possible so that I could get it done and stitched as fast as possible. I then hit next. Alright, here's the important part. This is the embroidery options. On this screen I feel like it's best to play around and just find a compromise that you're happy with. As you can see at the bottom of the image, there's actually a stitch count. So that'll tell you how many stitches are going to be in your final image. So what you want to do is mess around with the density so that you get an image that's fairly detailed, but not a ludicrous amount of stitches. Because the image that I'm doing is quite large in scale, I can't allow it to be super high density, otherwise it would take me absolutely forever to stitch. So what I ended up going for is quite a low density stitch, but it gives a nice effect, and it ends up a really nice representation of my sister's dog, and you can clearly tell that it is my sister's dog, and she was thrilled with it in the end. Yeah, so mess around, see what you're happy doing. If you're happy doing 200,000 stitches in one image, then absolutely go for it. But if you want a quicker stitch out like I did, I just ended up landing on 39,000. Seemed like a decent amount to me. Seems like there's still a decent amount of detail in the image, so I was happy with it. Yeah, and then when you're done there, you hit next and it will place it in your frame. I ended up giving it a quick rotate as I knew the orientation that I was going to have the frame on my garment, so make sure you keep that in mind. And then go ahead and save it, but bear in mind that saving it isn't the same as exporting it. If you're interested in seeing a more realistic idea of what it'll look like, go ahead and click the Life View button. As you can see, it's in the top of the Home tab. And as you can see, that'll give you a sort of 3D stitched out view of what approximately your stitch out will end up looking like. I didn't actually like the way that I'd cropped the image in the end, as he sort of just looked a bit decapitated, as there was no clear outline around the bottom of his neck. It sort of just ended at the end of the frame. So what I did is I ended up re-cropping that image, and I'll just show you the process of that quickly. I actually used a program called paint.net, which is free to use, and all I did was simply grab the eraser tool and just erased around the outline till I had something I was pleased with. Saved it again as a PNG so that it kept the transparency, and then I just chucked it straight back in and went straight back through the process. As you can see, I ended up with an outline that I was much more pleased with, and I think that's the key with this sort of software. You can keep going back and forward and changing things that you don't like until you get it almost exactly how you like it. And you've not wasted any fabric or material. You're still just in the software, so you can do this endlessly until it's exactly how you want it. Alright, your final step is just going to be exporting it. Obviously this will differ depending on the machine you have, but I'm using a Brother 6 needle PR machine, so I'm going to use the .pes format. For you it may differ depending on your sewing machine. That is the great thing about this software. You can save it in any format you want. It supports almost every brand of embroidery machine out there, all the major ones at least. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, so chuck that on a memory stick, and then we'll just head to your embroidery machine to get it stitching out, I guess. I took a time lapse of this so you could watch the entire process. Enjoy! I knew this time would come. So I've got an indication here on my phone that's just come through. Broken thread, it says. And as we can see here, that is exactly the case. It has broken the thread, so all I have to do is quickly rethread that needle and then we'll be back on our way. That is it done, it's finally finished. As you can see, here it says finished embroidering. The design is done. I'm super pleased with it. Obviously you could go with a denser design, but I liked the idea of this look. There we go, there's the design. Nice.